Hey everyone, welcome to today's edition of One Single Story, where each weekday we tackle a single relevant question based on our Bible reading for that day. This week our reading is centered around the book of Philippians, and today I'm joined by Sheryl Daughety and Chris Rexroad. And our reading today was Philippians chapter 2, verses 1 through 13. Verse 3 and 4 say this: "Don't be selfish, don't try to impress others, be humble, thinking of others better than yourselves. Don't look out for your own interests, but take interest in others too." What does it mean to think of others as better than ourselves?
I mean, I feel like it says it just underneath when it basically says, don't look out for only your own interests, because I think it's natural for us to consider ourselves first in every situation, because that is the point of view that you see everything from.
Right.
Um, and it does take work for us to be able to see the needs of others as more important than our own needs.
Yeah, making sure that you're not always sitting there thinking, or not always, but be careful that you're not thinking, what do I benefit from this?
Mhm.
If I give my time or money or energy or whatever to this, what do I get out of it? Because a lot of times just giving to that person with no expectations of anything coming back to you is probably one of the more gratifying feelings when you walk away. That I think it's kind of a discipline to learn too.
Yeah, so I think I get the piece about don't only think about yourself, don't be selfish. But as a matter of fact, that's how verse 3 begins. Don't be selfish. And then verse 4 says, don't look out only for your own interest, but take an interest in others too. I, I think I comprehend completely and fully. Don't be selfish. That's a mark of Christianity. But this process of thinking of others as better than yourselves, he says right after humility. So, in literal terms, if you just take that literally, then Cheryl's better than me, you're better than me, Zach's better than me. But if you're thinking that way, you follow what I'm saying?
Mhm.
That literal, in literal English, that's what he's talking about. Do you think that's what he means?
I almost kind of wonder if it's a way of saying to don't overlook the value of the other person, to bring yourself down so you understand that they're as valuable or more valuable than you. Not saying that God loves them more than us. I think it's also kind of a blend of the humility and humbleness that we're supposed to exhibit. And when we do that, it's not that we think less of ourselves, but we just think about ourselves less.
I mean, that's kind of a challenge too, because so if everybody thought that way, if we all really did think that way, then we'd all be equal, right?
Right.
Because everybody would be considering everybody else better than themselves. And so we would all treat everybody. It's like, the golden rule. We'd all be treating everybody the way we would like to be treated.
It's a little multifaceted. One, it's hard to serve people that you think you're better than.
Mm-hmm.
That's number one. It's hard to serve people that you think you're better than they are. And we're called to be servants. And if I think I'm above you and you're beneath me, then I'm going to have a hard time serving you. Um, I think we have all had moments where we thought, "Who do you think you are?" Right? Who do you think you are? Because I've been in some situations where I was treated poorly because of somebody's position.
Mm.
And I remember one time specifically, I was a young preacher, but in the denominational circles, I was moving up fairly quickly in whatever their scale of moving up was about. But one of the things that you ended up getting stuck doing was at national conventions. the way they put you in front of people is you became a driver. You drove for denominational executives. And so I was a driver one week for a convention. And I remember watching a couple of those executives. They didn't mistreat me. I had two advantages. My father was one. He wasn't one of the people I was driving, and he didn't get driven around, but he was one. So I had that was one advantage. But advantage number two is I'm pretty quick-tongued, and so like if you had mouthed off at me, like I saw them mouth off at some people, but I was like, gosh, who do you think you are? Like you are not the Messiah. The way you're talking to these they were young preachers, most of them in their 20s, early 30s.
How encouraging.
Yeah, exactly. Well, all they were doing is picking up traits
Right.
that they were going to, once they got to that point,
Yep.
And I always said, I know, and this is, I don't want to get too far off track, but I had an opportunity to move into that, what I would call stair step. You become a church executive and then you just work your way up. 3 different times before I ended up leaving the denomination. And I didn't. And somebody in the last year, I was with a person who's an executive from that denomination. They said, "Do you ever regret not doing that?" And my answer was, I said, "No, absolutely not." And I have a lot of regrets in my life, but that's not one of them. And the reason is, my personality is such, is that I would have sold my soul to get to the top. Like it's such that, like, okay, I don't want to just play the game. That's not, because it is a game, and they would be mad. They would take offense to me saying it is a game. But if you're going to play, I want to win the game. That's just how I think, And I said I have 0 regrets. Pastoring is where I need to be because there's always somebody in some situation to keep me humble. If I think too highly of myself, there's a situation coming around the corner that's going to, cut me down to size. So but it goes on after that chapter and says that, after that verse, it says that Jesus, though he was God, didn't think that equality with God was something to cling to. But he gave up his divine privileges and became a man. And when I read that about thinking of others as better than yourself, Jesus saw, understood, knew that what needed to be accomplished in our lives was greater than him staying, in heaven for eternity. And he needed to come and follow through with becoming a sacrifice for us. So he didn't think, okay, I'm God, I don't have to do this. That can creep in on any of us. I'm the children's pastor. I don't have to teach a class, right? That's beneath me. I don't have to cut out crafts it's easy.
I don't.
Huh? It's easy to think that, okay, that's beneath me now. I don't think you ever get to a point that something is beneath you. You cannot think, okay, they're my servants, I'm the king, whatever the case may be. Have you ever experienced where somebody thought they were better than you in a church setting? Let's just forget. That's not. I think it happens to everybody in the world, but in a church setting. And if so, how did you respond?
Let's just say if it has happened in a church setting, I was probably unaware of it or just didn't care enough that it's, stayed in my memory. I don't, I've known like self-important preachers and pastors, that's for sure. But
when you say self-important, what do you mean by that?
They had an air of authority, believed authority, about themselves. Like, don't question me. Don't, my motives are what yours should be, kind of thing.
Mm.
And I think I have seen pastors who treated other people like that.
In a church one time, I had an elder that had that attitude that because of his position in life as well, that he acted like, I just show up to these meetings, I give you the answer, you do what you're supposed to do, I cut sizable checks, and when it comes time to events, if I show up, I'm just showing up and leaving. I'm not helping with anything. I'm not putting my hands in anything.
Because they felt like they'd paid for it.
That and kind of just an attitude of that's beneath me.
Mm-hmm.
That's not what, and the generic thing that I hate hearing people use as an excuse is, well, that's just not my gift. Like, gifts are given, other things are disciplines.
Yeah.
And it's just when they basically write everything else off, and it was this, because I give this money, I don't need to do any of these other things.
Mm-hmm.
And
When it needs to be done, it needs to be done,
Yeah.
whether it's what you're good at doing or not.
Yeah,
Sometimes,
but don't some people have the gift of giving, and that's just as important as the gift of teaching?
Oh yeah. I'm just saying.
Sounds like there's
to
no
go and-
humility in it, though.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
an attitude.
Oh, yeah.
The attitude
Yeah.
is different. Yeah, because what I don't want people to hear is, because I do believe there are people who have the gift of giving. That is the gift, the sole gift they need to be using in the kingdom of God. And when we ask them to do other things, we detract from their ability to use that gift.
Yeah, I would say if they were serving in a way that they didn't have any other time to devote to those things, but that's definitely not the case here. This is where I'm trying not to say anything too much in case there's anybody from my past that watches any of this. I don't want to call people out, but to counter that, to give an example, there was another person there, and I think about him all the time when I think about humility. This guy here probably could have bought that other guy out that I'm talking about probably 10 times over by his personal net worth. And this is the guy that would show up to church on Friday afternoons when nobody's there and push mow the front yard and take care of a few other things and do things that nobody even knew that he did. And that was just, to me, that was just like super cool and probably one of the nicest people you could talk to. I think we could learn from people like that, Not saying that every person needs to be out doing every single type of thing, because there's areas that God's gifted us and God's called us to do, and we got to balance those times. But I don't think we should ever take on the attitude that, well, I won't do that. That's not for me.
Well, thank you for joining us today on this edition of One Single Story. We hope you'll be back with us tomorrow as we continue our conversation around the book of Philippians.